On Christmas Eve, I confronted my own family about my stolen money, and I truly believe the worst thing that could happen was an argument. I was wrong. The room turned on me like a single animal. My dad stepped into my space, his face tight with rage. And before I could even finish my sentence, his hand slammed into my shoulder. I went down hard, my hip clipping the cabinet. The breath knocked clean out of my lungs. I remember the taste of copper in my mouth. I remember my mom making a small sound, not a scream, just a quiet, startled noise like she had dropped something fragile. I remember my brother Paul staring at the floor. And I remember my dad looking down at me and saying calm and final, "Stay away from us. You are just being dramatic." I left with my hands shaking so badly I could barely get my keys into the ignition. Snow was falling soft and steady, like the world was trying to cover up what had just happened. I drove away from the only house I had ever called home, bruised and humiliated, repeating the same thought over and over. This is my dad. This cannot be real. My name is Athena. I am 31 years old. If you knew me in real life, you would probably describe me as steady. I am the daughter who does not cause trouble, the one who shows up early and stays late, the one who smooths conversations before they turn sharp. I work as a project coordinator for a logistics company in Wisconsin. My job is to catch problems before they explode, to notice patterns, to keep things running quietly in the background. I have always been good at that. My family relied on it. They liked me best when I absorbed stress so they did not have to. That night did not come out of nowhere. It only felt sudden because I had been trained to ignore the warning signs. My dad has always been the loudest presence in any room. He ran a small construction business for years and talked about money like it was proof of character. He believed confidence mattered more than caution. My mom learned early that peace came from shrinking. She kept the house running, the meals warm, and the conflict contained by swallowing her own reactions. My brother Paul learned how to disappear when voices got raised. I learned how to manage everyone else's comfort, even when my own needs stayed unspoken. Before I go any further, let me ask you something. What are you doing right now while you listen to this? Are you driving with one hand on the wheel? Are you folding laundry, pretending it is just background noise? Are you lying in bed with one earbud and staring at the ceiling? For me, when this happened, I was standing in my parents' kitchen with Christmas music playing low, watching my mom stir gravy like she could stir the truth back into place. Over several years, I saved a large portion of my income. It was not sudden money or easy money. It was slow and careful. I skipped trips. I delayed upgrades. I worked extra hours. I kept telling myself that savings meant safety. At some point, my dad offered to help manage it. He framed it as guidance, protection, experience. And because he was my dad, and because he spoke with confidence, I trusted him. Around the same time, he refinanced the family house. He asked me to co-sign to secure a better rate, assuring me it was temporary and that he would handle everything. The mortgage auto-pay ran through my account for convenience, he said, and he would settle up regularly. It sounded reasonable. It sounded responsible. It sounded like family helping family. I did not realize at the time how neatly that arrangement tied my finances to his control. By the winter of 2024, I started noticing things that did not add up. Not a dramatic drop, not a crisis alert, just small inconsistencies. Numbers that did not match what I remembered. Transfers I could not explain. I told myself it was probably nothing, that I was tired, that I was overthinking. That is what you do when you are raised to doubt yourself before questioning authority. Christmas Eve arrived cold and bright, the kind of cold that makes the air feel sharp in your lungs. My parents' neighborhood outside Madison looked like a postcard. Every house glowing, every lawn decorated. I sat in my car for a moment before going inside, telling myself to keep things light, get through dinner, be pleasant, do not bring up money. Inside the house smelled like butter and cinnamon. The tree lights blinked lazily in the corner. My mom wore her holiday apron. Dad sat in his chair with the television loud. Paul leaned against the counter, already halfway gone. Everything looked normal. That was the problem. Dinner passed with small talk. Weather, neighbors, someone distant who posted too much online. My smile stayed in place, but my mind kept circling the same thought. If I do not ask now, I may never ask. If I let this slide, I'm agreeing to whatever comes next. When Paul stepped out of the room and my mom turned back to the stove, I took a breath. I stood near the counter, leaving space between me and the table. My voice was calm. I said, "Dad, can you help me understand something? I noticed some money missing from my savings, and I want to make sure I am reading it correctly." He looked at me like I had insulted him. His face hardened immediately. "What are you talking about?" I told him the amount. I told him the general time frame. I said I was not accusing anyone. I just needed clarity. His chair scraped back. He stood quickly, too quickly. "Athena," he said, "you are always looking for problems. You think everyone is out to get you." I felt my stomach tighten. I said, "This is my money. There are transfers I did not make." My mom froze at the stove. She did not turn around. Paul re-entered the room and stopped short, sensing the shift. Dad stepped closer, his voice rising. He said I should be grateful. He said I was acting like a spoiled child. He said numbers move around and I probably forgot what I spent. He said I was dramatic. I tried to stay steady. I said, "Dad, I checked. The total does not match." I said the number again. Something changed in his face. It was not confusion or concern. It was anger sharpened by fear. He moved into my space. I stepped back and felt the counter hit my hip. I remember thinking, why is he so close? Then his hand struck my shoulder hard enough to knock me off balance. My feet slid on the tile and I went down. Pain flared immediately. My hip burned. My side screamed. The air left my lungs in a rush. I pressed my hand to the floor, trying to sit up, but my arms felt weak and slow. I looked up. Dad stood over me. Mom stood still, gripping the spoon like it was an anchor. Paul stared at the floor. No one moved toward me. No one asked if I was okay. The silence felt heavy and intentional. Dad spoke like he was laying down a rule. "Stay away from us," he said. "You are just being dramatic." At that moment, something in me went cold. I understood that this was no longer about money. It was about power. I had challenged his authority and he had answered with force. I stood up slowly, using the counter for support. My body trembled, but my face stayed blank. I grabbed my coat. My mom opened her mouth, then closed it. Paul looked at me with an apology he did not turn into action. I did not call the police. Not there. Not while I was dizzy and outnumbered. I knew exactly how fast that room would turn against me if uniforms appeared. I needed distance. I needed safety. I needed to leave before they rewrote the story. Outside, the cold air hit my face. Snow melted on my cheeks. I drove away through streets lined with blinking lights, my jaw clenched, my hands tight on the wheel. By the time I reached my apartment, my hip throbbed and my side ached. I locked the door behind me and leaned against it, breathing hard. The silence inside my place was different. It was mine. That night no one called. No one checked on me. No one asked if I was hurt. Lying awake in the dark, pain pulsing through my body, one thought kept returning with sharp clarity. If my dad could shove me to the floor over a question, then the truth I was about to uncover would be far worse than missing money. The next morning, I woke up with my body speaking louder than my thoughts. My hip felt like someone had poured hot sand into the joint. Every time I shifted, a bright sting ran up my side and made me suck in a breath. When I touched the spot below my ribs, the skin was tender and already turning that deep purple that always looks worse on day 2. My head did not pound, not exactly, but it had that slow, foggy pressure that made it hard to focus, like my brain was wrapped in cotton. I lay there staring at the ceiling of my apartment, listening to the heater click on and off. Outside, the world was still wearing Christmas lights. My neighbors' kids were probably tearing into wrapping paper and laughing. Somewhere, someone was pouring coffee and humming to a carol. Meanwhile, I was alone, bruised, and wide awake with the kind of quiet that follows a slap. My phone sat on the nightstand. I reached for it almost automatically, like my hand believed there would be something there. An apology, a text from Mom, a call from Paul asking if I was okay, even a stiff message from Dad telling me I had overreacted. Something. Anything that proved I still mattered to them as more than an inconvenience. There was nothing. No missed calls, no voicemail, no new messages. It was like I had walked out of their house and fallen off the edge of the earth. By late morning, the pain and the dizziness had settled into something more manageable, but I could not shake the feeling that if I just ignored this, it would become the new normal. It would become another story my family told about me. Athena got dramatic. Athena stormed out. Athena always makes holidays about herself. And if I let that version stand, I would spend the rest of my life trying to climb out from under it. So I did the first thing that felt practical. I got dressed slowly, pulling on leggings and a long sweater, moving like a person twice my age. I tied my hair back, checked my face for any bruising, then leaned close to the bathroom mirror and looked myself in the eyes. I looked exhausted. Not just tired, exhausted in the bones. I drove to an urgent care clinic about 10 minutes away. The parking lot was half full, and the waiting room smelled faintly of disinfectant and winter coats. A television in the corner played a morning talk show with the volume too low to understand but high enough to be irritating. A little boy coughed into his sleeve. An older woman filled out paperwork with trembling hands. Life went on indifferent and ordinary. At the front desk, I gave my name, my birth date, and my insurance card. The receptionist asked me what brought me in. I hesitated for a split second, because telling the truth out loud felt like stepping off a cliff. I fell at my parents' house on Christmas Eve, I said. I hit my hip and my side. I have been dizzy and sore. She handed me a clipboard and pointed me to a seat. In the exam room, a nurse took my blood pressure and asked questions in a calm, practiced tone. Any loss of consciousness, any vomiting, any vision changes, any numbness. She asked me how the injury happened, and I repeated the same line. Careful and contained. I fell. That part was not a lie. I did fall. It just left out the hand that put me on the floor. The clinician who came in was a woman around my mom's age, maybe late 50s or early 60s. She had kind eyes and the tired steadiness of someone who has seen a lot of human mess. She pressed gently along my ribs, asked me to breathe in and out, and watched my face for flinches. She examined my hip and had me walk a few steps. You've got a significant bruise, she said. Likely soft tissue injury. Your head symptoms sound like a mild concussion. I want you to rest. No heavy lifting, no intense workouts, no alcohol for a while. And if your dizziness gets worse or you develop severe headaches, you go to the emergency room. I nodded and tried to keep my face neutral, but my throat tightened anyway, because hearing it in a professional voice made it real in a way my family had refused to acknowledge. Before I left, I asked for a printed copy of the visit summary. The nurse looked surprised, but she printed it without comment. I folded the papers and tucked them into my purse like they were fragile. Back in my apartment, I did the second practical thing. I took photos. I stood in the bathroom under the bright light and photographed the bruise on my hip from 3 angles. I photographed the swelling along my side. I took a selfie that showed the tired heaviness in my face. I saved them in a folder on my phone and backed them up to a cloud drive. Then I opened a notes app and typed the date and time. Christmas Eve. Approximately after dinner. Injury in kitchen. Dad shoved me. Words said, Mom witnessed. Paul witnessed. Typing that last part made my hands shake. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I closed the app and set my phone down on the counter. I leaned forward, gripping the edge of the sink, and let myself breathe. My apartment was quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet. The kind of quiet where you start hearing things you normally drown out. The soft tick of the clock. The distant whoosh of a car passing outside. The buzz of my refrigerator. And beneath it all, that steady drumbeat of disbelief. That evening, Mom finally texted. It was only 5 words. Are you coming tomorrow? No apology. No concern. No acknowledgement. Like I was late to a potluck. I stared at the message until my eyes burned. Then I put my phone face down and walked to my couch. Another day passed. Then another. 2 days after Christmas Eve, I had still received nothing from Dad. No call. No text. No attempt to explain the money. It was as if his shove had ended the conversation permanently. As if physical force was his way of writing the final sentence. My hip bruising darkened. My side hurt when I laughed, which I did not do much of. My head felt clearer, but my chest stayed tight, like my body was waiting for the next hit. On the second evening, I opened my laptop and logged into my online banking. I had been avoiding it because I was afraid of what I would find. But fear does not change facts. My savings history stared back at me like a confession in numbers. Not one giant withdrawal, not one dramatic theft, but a pattern. Transfers every few weeks. Some small, some larger. Always just enough to slip under the radar if you were not counting. If you trusted the person holding the wheel. I clicked through month by month. The first time I noticed it clearly was early fall. then again in late fall, and more frequently as the holidays approached. It was like someone had gotten bolder the closer we got to Christmas. I did the math on a notepad, writing it down by hand because it helped my brain believe it. The total missing was not a few $100s. It was thousands. Tens of thousands. It made me nauseous. Then I saw another line item that made my stomach drop for a different reason. Mortgage autopay. The monthly payment that had been coming out of my checking account for years, because I had co-signed in 2021 and agreed to set it up. I had told myself it did not matter, because Dad always reimbursed me, or at least he claimed he did by shifting money around. Now looking at those transactions next to the missing transfers, I realized how clean the trap was. If the mortgage came out of my account, Dad could call it my responsibility. If my savings sat where he could access it, he could take what he needed and call it family. And if I ever questioned it, he could paint me as unstable. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. I jumped because my nerves were still too close to the surface. I picked it up and saw Dad's name. For a second, my chest did something stupid. A small, hopeful lift. Maybe he was calling to apologize. Maybe he was calling because he had slept on it and realized he went too far. Maybe he was calling to ask if I was okay. I answered quietly. He did not say hello the way a dad says hello when he cares. He said it like a man calling customer service. "Hey," he said. "Did you pay the mortgage this month?" I sat very still. I stared at the wall across from my couch, where my framed college diploma hung, slightly crooked. My mouth went dry. "No, are you okay?" "No, I heard you fell." "No, I shouldn't have touched you." "No, let's talk. Just a mortgage." I could hear the faint background noise on his end, a television. Maybe a sports game. Life continues. Him lounging somewhere warm. He was breathing normally, like he had not shoved his daughter to the floor 2 nights ago. My brain moved through a fast, quiet checklist. He was calling because the payment did not go through. He was calling because he expected me to fix it. He was calling because his biggest fear was not losing me. It was losing control. I did not answer right away. I let the silence hang. I heard him shift like my pause annoyed him. "Athena," he said again, sharper. "Are you there?" I was there. I had never been there in my life. In that pause, I remembered the moment on the kitchen floor. The cold tile. The way Mom did not move. The way Paul looked away. The way Dad said I was dramatic as if pain was a personality flaw. Something inside me hardened not into cruelty, but into clarity. The kind of clarity you get when you finally stop hoping someone will become a different person. I said 4 words, calm and simple. "I am not paying." He made a short sound like a laugh that wasn't funny. "What do you mean you're not paying?" I did not raise my voice. I did not explain. I did not defend myself. I had done that my whole life, and it had never saved me. "I mean, I am not paying," I said again, and then I ended the call. For a few seconds, I just held my phone in my hand. My heart was pounding, but it was not the frantic panic I expected. It was something steadier. A fast beat, yes, but controlled like a drumline finding its rhythm. My phone buzzed immediately. A call back. I watched it ring. I did not answer. Then another, and another. Then a text, then 2 more. I have not opened them yet. I set the phone down on the table like it was something hot. I leaned back on my couch and stared at the ceiling. My hip throbbed, my side ached, and my head felt tired. But underneath all of that, I felt something else sliding into place. For years, my dad had believed he could take what he wanted from me, and I would always come back to beg for peace. He had believed my love for my family was a lever he could pull whenever he needed me to move. And now, for the first time, that lever did not work. I did not feel triumphant, not yet. I felt scared because I knew this would not end with one phone call. But I also felt a quiet shift, like the weight had moved from my shoulders to his. I picked up the urgent care papers from my purse and set them on the table, next to my laptop. Then I opened a folder on my computer and started saving what I was finding. Screenshots of transfers, dates, amounts, patterns. I saved Mom's text asking if I was coming tomorrow. I saved the notes I had typed about Christmas Eve. I saved the photo of the bruise on my hip, darker now unmistakable. I was not making noise. I was not screaming. I was not begging anyone to understand. I was preparing. When I finally opened Dad's texts, they were exactly what I expected. Anger, accusations, threats disguised as disappointment. He told me I was ungrateful. He told me I was overreacting. He told me I was tearing the family apart. He told me Mom was crying. He did not once ask if I was hurt. I set the phone down again and exhaled slowly. I could feel the moment expanding the space I had created with 4 words. I am not paying. It sounded small, but it was the first real boundary I had ever spoken out loud. And sitting there in my quiet apartment, with my bruises and my paperwork and my shaking hands finally steadying, I realized I had just changed the shape of my life. The only question was what my family would do when they realized they could, not shove me back into the old one. I found out quickly that the bruise on my hip was not the only mark Christmas Eve left on me. The next morning, the social bruise showed up. It arrived in little buzzing vibrations on my phone, one after another, like my family had formed a committee overnight and assigned themselves roles. Mom was first. Her message was short and careful. The way she always spoke when she wanted something but did not want to own the wanting. I barely slept last night. Your dad is very upset. You need to apologize so we can move on. I stared at the screen until my eyes went blurry. She did not ask how I was feeling. She did not ask if I was hurt. She did not say I am sorry he pushed you. She went straight to the part where peace could be restored as long as I paid for it with my dignity. I set the phone down and tried to make coffee, but my hands shook when I opened the cabinet. The mug clinked against the shelf. The sound made my stomach twist, because it reminded me of the kitchen tile under my palm, cold and unforgiving. When I sat at my table, my phone buzzed again. Paul. His message came in a string, like he typed it in a rush, and still never found the courage to actually call. Me. Athena, are you okay? This whole thing got out of hand. Dad is stressed. Mom is stressed. You know how he is. Just cool off and come back. We can talk like adults, like adults. I almost laughed, but the movement pulled at my side and the pain stopped it. Paul had watched Dad shove me down. He saw me on the floor. He did nothing. Now he wanted me to come back and talk like adults, as if the violence was just a misunderstanding, a spilled drink at a party. I did not respond. I took a sip of coffee and let the bitterness sit on my tongue. Then the extended family started trickling in, because in my family, nothing stays private. Not emotions, not mistakes, not money. Someone always spreads it like butter across the table until everyone has a taste. The first one was my Aunt Karen Wilkes. She was not even my real aunt, just one of my mom's cousins who had been at every holiday dinner since I was a kid. She had the kind of energy that looks like concern until you realize it is curiosity dressed in a sweater. She texted, "Hi, honey. I heard there was some trouble. Your dad loves you. He would never hurt you on purpose. Family money is family money. Don't let greed ruin Christmas." Greed. The word hit me harder than I expected, like she had reached through the screen and slapped a label on my forehead. Greedy daughter, dramatic daughter, ungrateful daughter. I wanted to scream. I wanted to type back that I was not greedy, I was robbed. That I saved that money by skipping vacations and stretching paychecks. That I did not ask for anything except the truth. That my dad put his hands on me. That my mom watched. That Paul stood there like a statue. But I could already hear how it would sound to them. Too much. Too emotional. Too dramatic. In my family, anger from Dad was allowed. Silence from Mom was allowed. Cowardice from Paul was allowed. But anger from me was treated like a crime. I put my phone down and tried to focus on work emails. But my brain kept circling back to the same question. How did the story already change so fast? How did my bruises become my fault? A little after lunch, Mom called. I watched her name light up on my screen and felt my chest tighten. For a moment, I almost let it go to voicemail, because I knew her tone before I even answered. But something in me needed to hear it, like I was still hoping she would surprise me. I picked it up. "Athena," she said, and her voice was soft in the way it gets when she is trying to guide me back into my place. "Your dad has been beside himself." I waited. She sighed, like she had been carrying this burden alone. "You know how much he has done for you. You know he worries about you. You come in on Christmas Eve accusing him, and you expect him to just take it." I swallowed. "Mom, I did not accuse him. I asked a question. My savings are missing money." She made a small sound like annoyance, trying to stay polite. "He says you are confused. He says you've been stressed lately. He says you're reading things wrong." My hand tightened around the phone. I have records. I have a transfer history. It is not confusing. There was a pause, and I could almost see her standing in her kitchen, staring at the floor, deciding which side was safer. Athena, she said finally, you need to stop digging. You are only going to make things worse. Worse. That word was familiar. Worse meant Dad gets angry. Worse meant family gatherings get awkward. Worse meant Mom has to hear yelling. Worse meant Paul has to pick a side. Worse meant I was supposed to swallow what happened so everyone else could. Breathe. I felt my voice shake, but I kept it low. Mom. He pushed me. I fell. I have a bruise the size of my hand on my hip. She did not deny it. She did not apologize. She did not ask if I saw a doctor. Instead, she said what she always says when she wants something to disappear. He did not mean it like that. You startled him. He thought you were attacking him. I sat very still. My skin went cold. In her mind, my question was the attack, and his shove was a reaction. Not violence, not abuse, just a man startled. So I did what I had never really done before. I stopped and I listened not to her words, but to the shape of them. Everything she said was designed to lead me to one place, back under Dad's control, back in line, back to being the responsible one who fixes the mess. I said, Mom, I am not apologizing for asking where my money went. Her tone sharpened just slightly, like the mask slipping. Then what are you going to do, ruin your father's life? Call the police. Is that what you want? I could hear the fear underneath her anger. Don't fear me. Fear of consequences. Fear of outsiders. Fear of shame. My mom cared about appearances like some people care about oxygen. I took a slow breath. I am going to protect myself, I said. She scoffed. Protect yourself from what? Your own dad. That was the moment I realized she truly did not hear me. She heard the threat of conflict. She heard the danger to the family story. But she did not hear her daughter telling her she had been hurt. I ended the call politely. I said I had to go. I did not argue. I did not beg. I did not plead for her to understand. I just set the phone down and stared out the window at the gray winter sky. The rest of the day was a steady stream of pressure. Paul called in the early evening. I let it go to voicemail, then listened later. His voice was low, cautious. Athena, you have to stop. Dad is furious. Mom is crying. You know how this is going to go. Just pay the mortgage and let things cool down. We can talk after New Year's. Please, pay the mortgage. That phrase lodged in my chest like a stone. Paul did not say Dad should pay the mortgage. He did not say Dad should return your money. He did not say Dad should apologize for pushing you. He said pay the mortgage like it was a natural expectation, like I was the one responsible for keeping Dad afloat. My phone buzzed again. A message from Karen Wilkes. Honey, do not air family business. Everyone makes mistakes. Your dad is old school. He is proud. He does not respond well to confrontation. If you love him, you will let this go. Let this go. Another familiar phrase. It always meant the same thing. Let him do what he wants and call it love. I opened my laptop and pulled up my bank records again. Because numbers do not gaslight. Numbers do not rewrite themselves to protect a man's ego. The pattern was there. The missing transfers were there. The mortgage autopay history was there. It was not my imagination. And yet every message I received tried to make it my imagination. My stress, my confusion, my greed, my drama. By late evening, I felt like I was drowning in other people's opinions. My family was not asking what happened. They were telling me what happened. They were building a new version of Christmas Eve in real time, one where I was unstable, and Dad was provoked, and Mom was heartbroken, and Paul was stuck in the middle. I thought about replying with one long, clear message. I thought about attaching screenshots of the transfer history. I thought about sending photos of my bruise. I thought about writing, he pushed me. I fell. I went to urgent care. This is real. Stop calling me dramatic. But then I imagined what would happen next. Mom would cry harder and say I was being cruel. Dad would rage and say I was spreading lies. Paul would panic and beg me to take it back. Karen Wilkes would forward my message to 3 other relatives and add her own. Commentary about how sad it was that money changed people. The focus would shift away from the truth and land on my tone, my wording, my attitude. Every time I explained myself to my family, it did not bring clarity. It gave them something to pick apart. It gave them more material to manage me, more sentences to twist, more emotion to label dramatic. That was the mini truth I could not ignore anymore. My explanations were not helping. They were feeding the machine. So I did something that felt terrifying and powerful at the same time. I stopped. I turned my phone on silent. I put it face down on the table. I did not respond to Mom. I did not respond to Paul. I did not respond to Karen Wilkes. I did not send the screenshots. I did not defend myself. I did not write a long message hoping it would finally make them see me. Instead, I opened a fresh document on my laptop and started writing down facts. Dates, transfer amounts, notes about conversations. Who said what when? I wrote it the way I write project timelines at work. Clean and organized and unemotional, because I realized that if I wanted justice, I could not keep fighting in the arena they built for me, where feelings were used as weapons and truth was treated like disrespect. I was not going to win by being louder. I was going to win by being clearer. Close to midnight, my phone buzzed again, even on silent, because the screen lit up. A new message from Mom. If you do not come tomorrow, do not bother coming at all. I stared at it, my pulse steady, my face calm. I did not reply. For the first time in my life, I let the threat hang in the air without rushing to fix it. If their love depended on my obedience, then it was not love. It was a contract, and I had spent too many years paying into it. I shut my laptop, turned off the lights, and went to bed. The silence in my apartment was not empty anymore. It was intentional. It was the first boundary I had ever set without asking permission. And as I lay there listening to the heater hum, I understood something that scared me and steadied me at the same time. They could call me dramatic all they wanted. They could demand apologies. They could threaten to cut me off. But they could not force me to explain myself back into the cage. The morning after I made that decision, I woke up with a strange mix of fear and focus. My body still hurt my hip, stiff and tender, my side sore every time I twisted. But my mind felt sharper than it had in days. Silence had given me room to think. And once I stopped trying to convince my family, the questions I actually needed to answer became clearer. The biggest one was simple and terrifying at the same time. Had my dad actually had the right to touch my money? I had trusted him with it, yes. I had let him help manage it, yes. But trust and permission are not the same thing. I needed facts, not family opinions. That was how I ended up sitting across from Linda Carver 2 days later in a quiet corner of a coffee shop on the east side of Madison. Linda was in her early 70s, with short silver hair and the kind of posture that comes from a lifetime of holding herself steady. She had been a close friend of my grandmother Evelyn, and growing up, she was the woman who always slipped me extra cookies and asked real questions, instead of polite ones. She had worked for years as an office manager at a small law firm before retiring, and while she was not a lawyer, she knew how paperwork worked. She knew how people tried to bend rules when they thought no one would check. When I called her, my voice was shaking a little. She did not hesitate. "Come see me," she said. "Bring whatever you have." So I did. I brought my laptop. I brought printed bank statements. I brought the urgent care visit summary folded carefully in my purse, though I did not plan to show it unless I had to. Mostly I brought a knot of shame I could not seem to shake, because asking for help felt like admitting I had failed at being the capable daughter everyone expected. Linda wrapped her hands around her coffee mug and listened while I explained. Everything. The savings, the auto pay, the missing transfers, Christmas Eve, the shove. My family calls me dramatic. She did not interrupt. She did not rush me. She nodded occasionally, her eyes sharp but kind. When I finished, she let out a slow breath and leaned back in her chair. "Athena," she said gently, "the first thing you need to understand is this. Money does not stop being yours just because you trusted someone with it." I frowned, but I gave him access. I let him manage it. She nodded again. Managing is not owning. Unless you signed a document giving him power of attorney or specific written authorization to use your funds for his expenses, that money remains yours. Period. The word landed hard. Period. I felt my chest tighten. Even the mortgage. I co-signed. The auto pay came from my account. Linda tilted her head. Co-signing means you are responsible if the primary borrower does not pay. It does not give the borrower the right to use your savings as a personal line of credit. Those are two separate things. I stared down at my coffee, watching the steam curl upward. So he had no right to move that money. No, she said plainly. And if he did it without your permission, that is not family misunderstanding. That is misuse of funds. My throat felt tight. But he always framed it like he was just keeping things running, like he was covering expenses and it would all even out. Linda gave a small, sad smile. That is how people justify control. They tell themselves they are being responsible while quietly crossing lines. I pulled up the transaction history on my laptop and slid it across the table. She leaned forward, adjusted her glasses, and studied it carefully. These withdrawals are consistent, she said after a moment. Not random. That tells me he was relying on them for what I asked. She looked up at me. To maintain the image he needed. To keep playing the role he wanted. The words hit me in a way I had not expected, because suddenly memories lined up like pieces snapping into place. Dad always talked about being the provider, the man who handled things, the one people came to for advice. He liked telling stories about paying for this covering, that helping someone out. Even when I was an adult with my own job, he spoke about my finances like they were an extension of his. And here I was, realizing that my money may have been quietly propping up that identity. I felt a rush of anger so sharp it made my hands tremble. He shoved me because I asked. Linda met my eyes. He shoved you because you threatened his control. I swallowed. What do I do now? She did not answer right away. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook, flipping it open. First, you document everything. You already started doing that, which is good. Dates, amounts, conversations. Keep it factual. Second, you do not confront him again without support. Not emotionally and not legally. Legally? The word made my stomach flip. She saw my reaction and softened her tone. I am not saying you have to run to court tomorrow. I am saying you need to understand your position. Knowledge is power, Athena. And right now your dad is counting on you not knowing yours. I nodded slowly. My mind raced. All this time, I had been wondering if I was overreacting, if I was being dramatic, if I misunderstood. And here was Linda, calmly telling me that the foundation of my dad's story was rotten. The money was never his. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of that truth settling between us. There is something else you should consider, Linda said. The fact that he reacted with force when questioned suggests he was afraid of exposure, not offended by disrespect. I thought about the way his face had changed when I repeated the number. Not confusion, not hurt. Fear. Fear that his system was about to collapse. He did not shove me because he was startled. He shoved me because I saw through him. When I left the coffee shop, the winter air felt different. Sharper but clearer. Like I had stepped out of fog. I sat in my car for a while before driving away, gripping the steering wheel, letting the reality sink in. My dad had not taken my money to help me. He had taken it to help himself, to keep paying the mortgage, to keep up appearances, to stay the man who never struggled, even if it meant draining his daughter quietly. And when I questioned it, he did not explain. He attacked. That realization hurt in a way I could not fully articulate, because it meant the version of my dad I had defended for years was not just flawed. He was willing to hurt me to protect his narrative. Back at my apartment, I opened my laptop again, but this time, I did not just look at numbers. I created folders. One for bank records, one for messages, one for notes from Linda. I scanned documents. I labeled files with dates. I wrote summaries the way I do at work, clean and unemotional. As I worked, my phone buzzed on the table. I did not pick it up right away. When I finally glanced at the screen, I saw a message from Mom. We need to talk. This silence is hurting your father. I felt a familiar tug in my chest. The old reflex to respond to, soothe to fix. But now that reflex felt exposed. Manipulated. I typed a response, then erased it. I did not owe anyone comfort while I was still piecing together the truth. Instead, I closed my laptop and leaned back on the couch. My hip aching. My head tired but clear. The problem was never just money. Money was the tool. The real issue was control. Control over my finances. Control over my choices. Control over the family story. And for the first time, I understood something that both frightened and steadied me. Taking my money back would not be enough, because even if every dollar were returned, the question would remain. Who gets to decide what I owe? As the afternoon light faded, I knew one thing with certainty. The fight ahead was not about recovering savings. It was about reclaiming my autonomy, and my dad had no idea how unprepared he was. For the moment I stopped playing my assigned role, the first sign came in the form of a phone call from a number I did not recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in me said the answer. Because when families start spiraling, they do not just call you. They recruit people to call you. I picked up and a familiar voice filled my ear, cheerful in a way that felt forced. Athena, honey, it is Sandra. Sandra was my mom's older sister. She lived about an hour away, always had perfectly styled hair and a voice that could sound sympathetic, while still cutting you down. When I was a kid, she would pinch my cheeks and tell me I was such a good girl. I knew now what she meant by good. Quiet, agreeable, useful. Hi, Aunt Sandra, I said, keeping my tone neutral. She did not waste time. Your mom is beside herself. She's been crying for days. You cannot do this to her. Do what I asked. Sandra sighed like I was being difficult on purpose. You know exactly what I mean. You stormed out on Christmas Eve. You embarrassed your father in his own home. You have everyone worried. Worried about what I asked again. And my voice stayed steady even though my stomach clenched. That I might have bruises on my hip. That I might be scared to sleep. That I went to urgent care because my head was still foggy. Sandra did not know any of that because in their version of events, there was no injury. There was only drama. Worried that you are not thinking clearly, she said. Worried that you are letting money come between you and family. There it was. The script. Money turned her. Money changed her. Money made her selfish. I felt my jaw tighten. I asked a question, I said. Dad shoved me. Sandra went quiet for a beat. Then her voice softened in the way people soften when they are about to erase. You. Your dad did not mean anything by it. He was upset. You pushed him. Not physically, of course, but emotionally. You cornered him. Cornered him. With my own money. I took a slow breath. Aunt Sandra. I am not arguing about this on the phone. She made a sound of frustration. Then what do you want? Do you want to tear this family apart? Do you want your mother to suffer? Do you want your dad to lose the house because you are being stubborn? Lose the house. That was new. I felt a cold pressure settle behind my eyes. So that's the story now, I said quietly. That I am trying to make Dad lose the house, Sandra snapped back. No one said that. But you stopped the mortgage payment and now your dad is stressed. Your mom is sick with worry. And you are sitting there acting like you are the victim. I ended the call before I could say something I would regret. My hands were shaking, but not from fear this time, from anger. From the way their story had spread like wildfire, and in it, I was the villain no matter what was true. A few minutes later, Paul texted, Are you serious? Aunt Sandra is calling everyone. Mom is crying again. Just talk to Dad. This is getting out of hand. I stared at that message and felt something heavy settle in my chest. Paul was not angry at Dad for pushing me. He was angry at me for disrupting the system. It was always the same in our family. The person who reacts to harm gets blamed for the harm existing. Then a message popped up from a cousin I barely spoke to, someone who lived out of state and only showed up for weddings and funerals. I heard you're refusing to help your parents because you're mad. That is sad. Life is short. Life is short. Like that phrase alone could erase accountability. By that afternoon, my phone had become a little portal into the family version of the story, and I could see it taking shape in real time. Athena came in hot on Christmas Eve. Athena accused Dad. Athena started yelling. Athena embarrassed him. Dad was shocked. Mom was devastated. Paul tried to calm things down. Athena stormed out. Athena stopped paying the mortgage out of spite. Athena is greedy. Athena has changed because of money. I was not even a person in that story. I was a cautionary tale. That night, Mom finally called again. I let it ring 3 times before I answered, because part of me was tired of being the only one who had to be brave. Her voice cracked immediately. Athena, please. I closed my eyes. Mom, what do you want? I want my family back, she said. And the way she said family back made it sound like a broken ornament she was trying to glue together. I want us to be normal again. Normal. The word carried years of memories. Normal meant dad talks and everyone listens. Normal meant mom smiles through discomfort. Normal meant Paul avoids conflict. Normal means I pay and apologize and pretend it is love. I kept my voice low. Dad pushed me to the floor. She inhaled sharply like she was bracing. He did not mean it, she whispered. That sentence was so familiar it felt like a lullaby. He did not mean it when he yelled. He did not mean it when he slammed doors. He did not mean it when he called people names. He did not mean it when he was punished with silence. He did not mean it. It was always the same. Dad did not mean it, so everyone else had to carry the meaning. I opened my eyes. Mom, doesn't matter what he meant, it happened. She started crying harder. You know he is under pressure. You know things have been tight. You know how proud he is. He does not respond well when he feels attacked. Attacked, again. My question was framed as violence, and his shove was framed as emotion. I felt my throat tighten. Who told you I attacked him? She hesitated, and I could hear it. The small pause where she chose the safest answer. Paul said you were raising your voice. Your dad said you came in accusing him. Everyone was so upset, Athena. Everyone was upset. Everyone. As if my bruise was not real unless someone else acknowledged it. I said something then that felt like stepping onto thin ice. Mom, did you see me on the floor? Silence. I waited, my heart pounding. Yes, she whispered finally. Did you see Dad shove me? Another long pause. Then a softer yes. I swallowed hard. Then why are you telling people he did not mean it? Why are you letting everyone say I am greedy and dramatic? Why are you calling me to apologize when you know what happened her? Breathing came through the phone shaky and uneven. Because if I admit what happened, she said so quietly, I almost missed it. Everything will fall apart. There it was. The truth beneath all the tears. Not that Dad did not mean it. Not that I was confused. Not that it was complicated. The truth was that Mom could not afford the reality because she had built her whole life around avoiding it. I felt a strange mix of sadness and anger. Mom had survived by shrinking, by smoothing, by telling herself that love meant tolerating anything as long as the family stayed together. And she had taught me that lesson too, even if she never said it out loud. I said, Mom, I am not going to pretend anymore. She sobbed. What do you want from us? The question almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was so backwards. What do you want from us, as if I was the one demanding, as if I had not spent my whole life giving? I want you to stop saying I am dramatic, I said. I want you to stop telling people I'm greedy. I want you to admit that Dad took money that was not his and then pushed me when I asked about it. Her crying turned into a sharp inhale, the sound of someone realizing the cost of what I was asking. I cannot do that, she said. And there it was. Clear and simple. She could not do it, not because it was not true, because it would break the illusion she lived inside. I sat on my couch, phone pressed to my ear, and felt something shift in me. Again, another layer of denial peeling away. Mom was not neutral. She never had been. Her silence was not passive. It was protective. She used quiet the way Dad used volume. She used tears the way Dad used anger. It was all a system designed to keep him safe and keep everyone else in line. I said, okay, Mom. My calm seemed to confuse her. Okay. Yes, I said, still calm. If you cannot admit what happened, then you cannot be part of the solution. Her voice turned fearful. Athena, please, do not do this. Do not cut us off. I did not say cut off. I did not say no contact. I did not say never. I simply said I'm taking care of myself now. After I ended the call, I sat in silence for a long time. I could still hear her crying in my head. I could still picture her in the kitchen wiping her hands on a towel, avoiding Dad's eyes, avoiding the truth. I felt pity for her, and I hated that I felt pity, because pity was what kept me trapped too. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Paul. Mom is losing it. Dad says you're trying to ruin him. Just fix this. Fix this. The constant request. Fix it, Athena. Make it smooth again. Pay for peace again. I set my phone down and walked to my bathroom mirror. I lifted my shirt slightly and looked at the bruise along my side. Dark, angry, spreading. Proof that my body remembered what my family was trying to erase. Then I looked into my own eyes. For the first time, I stopped asking myself why they could not understand. They understood. They just did not care because understanding would require change. and change would require them to lose the comfort of their roles. Our family only stayed calm when I made myself small. That was the condition. That was the price. And standing there in my quiet apartment looking at my own reflection, I finally accepted a truth that hurt like grief. This family did not love me the way I deserved to be loved. They loved the version of me that made their lives easier. Once I accepted that something unexpected happened, the chaos quieted down. Not around me, but inside me. I stopped reacting and started moving with intention. And that was when the consequences my dad never planned for began to unfold. The auto pay for the mortgage did not go through at the start of the month. I knew it would not. I had turned it off deliberately calmly, with the same focus I used at work when a process needed to end. There was no dramatic gesture, no announcement, just a decision made with clear eyes. 3 days later, my phone rang while I was at my kitchen table reviewing spreadsheets from work. The number was unfamiliar, but the area code was local. I answered. "Hello, this is Athena Brooks. Ms. Brooks, this is Mark Holloway from North Ridge Lending. I am calling regarding the mortgage on the property on Willow Creek Drive. You are listed as a co-signer on the loan." My chest tightened, but my voice stayed steady. "Yes, I am aware. There has been a missed payment this month," he said. "We have been attempting to reach the primary borrower, but we have not received a response." I closed my eyes for a brief moment. So that was how it was happening. Quietly, officially, without shouting or accusations, just consequences moving forward. "I understand," I said. "What do you need from me?" Mark paused as if he was recalibrating. Typically, co-signers step in to resolve the delinquency. However, given the circumstances, we wanted to confirm whether you intend to remain financially responsible for this loan. I felt a strange calm settle over me. No one had asked me that before. Not Dad, not Mom, not Paul. No one had ever asked what I intended. They had only assumed. "No," I said. "I do not intend to remain financially responsible." There was another pause, longer this time. "All right," he said carefully. "In that case, there are a few paths forward we should discuss." We scheduled a call for later that afternoon so he could explain the options, in detail. When I hung up, I did not feel guilty. I felt grounded. This was not revenge. This was reality catching up. An hour later, Dad called. I watched his name light up on my screen and felt nothing but a dull weight. I answered without greeting. "What did you do?" he snapped, skipping every formality. I did not raise my voice. I did not argue. I did not explain. I asked a question instead. "What are you talking about? Do not play dumb," he barked. "The bank just called me. They said the payment bounced. You embarrassed me." There it was again. Not fear of foreclosure. Not concerned about finances. Embarrassment. I said, "I told you I'm not paying." "You cannot do this," he said. "That house is on the line. Your mother lives there." My jaw tightened. "You told me you handled the mortgage," I said. "That was the agreement." He scoffed. "You know how things are. You know I needed help." I stayed silent. Silence had become a tool I was finally learning how to use. After a few seconds, his tone shifted. It became flatter, more controlled. "You need to fix this, Athena. Call them back. Tell them it was a mistake." I thought of Linda Carver. I thought of the bank statements. I thought of the kitchen floor. "No," I said. His breathing grew louder through the phone. "If you do not do this," he said, "you are going to regret it." I ended the call. My hands shook afterward, but not with doubt, with adrenaline. Standing up to him still triggered something deep and old in me. But I stayed where I was. I did not pace. I did not spiral. I let the feeling pass. That afternoon, I spoke with Mark Holloway again. This time, he walked me through the situation clearly, step by step, without judgment. "Because you are a cosigner," he explained, "the lender has the right to pursue payment from you if the primary borrower defaults. However, you also have the right to formally withdraw your financial involvement moving forward." "What does that look like?" I asked. "It means the primary borrower would need to refinance the loan solely in his name or sell the property. Alternatively, you can submit a written notice stating that you will not continue making payments and request removal as cosigner, though that depends on the borrower qualifying independently." I took notes as he spoke, my pen moving steadily across the page. "And if he cannot qualify," I asked. Then the lender will proceed according to standard delinquency protocol, Mark said. Late fees notices and eventually further action if unresolved. I swallowed. And my savings? Does co-signing give him any right to that? Absolutely not, he said immediately. Those are separate accounts. Co-signing a mortgage does not grant access to personal savings unless explicitly authorized. The words echoed Linda Carver's voice almost exactly. Period. I thanked him and asked for everything in writing. He sent me an email within minutes outlining my options and the steps to formally notify the lender of my intent to withdraw responsibility. When I opened the document, I felt something close to relief. Not happiness. Relief. Clarity had weight, but it also had shape. I could work with shape. That evening, Mom called again. I did not answer. She left a voicemail. Athena, please call me back. Your dad is beside himself. The bank is calling non-stop. This is getting serious. I listened to it once, then saved it. Not to punish her, to remember. The next day, I received another call from Mark. This time, his tone was different, more strained. Ms. Brooks, I wanted to inform you that your father contacted our office this morning. I exhaled slowly. And he was upset, Mark said carefully. He insisted that you were responsible for the missed payment and demanded that we compel you to pay. I almost laughed, but it came out as a short breath instead. What did you tell him? That we cannot compel a co-signer to continue payments. If they formally withdraw, Mark said, and that any further communication would need to be conducted professionally. There was a pause. He also asked if you were trying to sabotage him. The familiar accusation landed without impact this time. I am not sabotaging anyone, I said. I am removing myself from a situation I should never have been put in. Mark was quiet for a moment. Then he said off the record, I see situations like this more often than you might think. Family arrangements blur boundaries. People assume things will always stay comfortable. Comfortable for whom I thought but did not say. We discussed next steps. I would submit a written notice stating that I was withdrawing financial responsibility effective immediately. Dad would need to refinance or make arrangements directly with the lender. I would no longer be a buffer. When the call ended, I sat back and closed my eyes. My heart was racing, but underneath it was a steady resolve. That night, Dad showed up at my apartment. I heard the knock and knew it was him before I even checked the door. The knock was too loud, too impatient, like he owned the space. I did not open it. I stood on the other side, my back against the wall, and listened. Athena, he shouted. Open the door. I said nothing. He knocked again, harder. You cannot hide from this. You are ruining everything. I stayed silent. My heart pounded, but my feet did not move. After a few minutes, his voice dropped, slipping into something that sounded almost pleading. Please, just talk to me. I leaned my forehead against the wall and closed my eyes. The urge to open the door was strong. Decades of conditioning screamed at me to smooth this over, to make it better, to sacrifice myself for peace. But I remembered the kitchen floor. I remembered his hand on my shoulder. I remembered his voice telling me to stay away. I did not open the door. Eventually, the knocking stopped. His footsteps retreated down the hall. The building went quiet again. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor, my knees drawn up, my hip aching. I let myself cry then, not because I doubted my choice, because I finally understood the cost of it. Choosing myself meant letting him face consequences he had avoided for years. It meant Mom would cry. It meant Paul would panic. It meant relatives would whisper. It meant the illusion would crack. But it also meant I would no longer be financing a lie. The next morning, I printed the withdrawal notice, signed it, and sent it certified mail. I saved copies. I emailed Mark. I documented everything. I did not yell. I did not threaten. I did not retaliate. I chose the path that protected me and respected the truth. As I sealed the envelope, my hands steady, I felt something settle into place. A line I would not cross again. This was not punishment. This was accountability. And no one had taught my dad how to handle that. When I dropped the letter into the mailbox, I stood there for a moment, breathing in the cold air, and understood something quietly but clearly. I was no longer reacting to him. I was moving forward without him. Once the immediate crisis settled, once the phone stopped ringing every hour and the bank paperwork was filed, something else surfaced, memory. Not the dramatic kind, not a single moment replaying on a loop, but a slow unraveling of the story I had told myself my whole life about my dad and about love. I had always said my dad was controlling in the way strong men sometimes are. Direct, opinionated, protective. I framed it as a concern. I framed it as an experience. I framed it as love. But sitting alone in my apartment, with the quiet stretched out in front of me, I started to see the pattern more clearly. It began when I was younger, long before money entered the picture. When I was in college, I had accepted an internship with a company in another state. It was not glamorous, but it was a step. I remember being excited calling home to tell my parents. Dad listened, then laughed. "That is too far," he said. "You do not need to go that far. There is nothing wrong with staying close to home." I explained why it mattered, how it would help my career. He waved it off. "I know better," he said. "Trust me." A week later, he had already called someone he knew locally and lined up a different opportunity for me. He presented it like a gift. "Look what I did for you. You do not have to worry anymore." I remember the way my excitement collapsed into gratitude I did not feel but knew I was supposed to show. I took the local position. I told myself it was practical. I told myself he was helping. I told myself love sometimes looks like someone else making the decision. When I got my first full-time job after graduation, I wanted to rent an apartment closer to work. Dad insisted it was a waste of money. "You can live at home longer," he said. "Save up, be smart." When I pointed out the commute and my independence, he frowned. "Why are you in such a rush to leave?" he asked. "We are family." So I stayed. And every time I adjusted my life to fit his comfort, he called it care. Even small things followed the same pattern. If I bought a car, he told me which one I should have bought. If I dated someone, he had opinions about their job, their background, their ambition. If I disagreed, he would say I was being emotional, or naive, or dramatic. And somehow I always walked away feeling like the problem was my reaction, not his behavior. When I started saving seriously, he praised me loudly. "You are smart like me," he said. "You know how to plan." But then he added, "You should let me help you manage it. I have more experience." I told myself it was normal. Parents guide their kids. Fathers protect their daughters. That was the story I clung to. But looking back now, I can see how often his help came with strings. How often his concern came with control. He never asked what I wanted. He told me what was best. The memory that finally cracked something open came from a few years ago, a moment that had seemed small at the time. I had been deciding whether to take a promotion that would require relocating within Wisconsin. It was a good move professionally, more responsibility, better pay. When I mentioned it to Dad, his face darkened. "Why would you do that?" he asked. "You have a good thing where you are." I explained the opportunity, my goals. He shook his head. "You are always chasing something. You do not know when to be content." Then he leaned in and said something that stuck with me. "I just do not want you to make a mistake." At the time, I heard concern. Now I hear a warning. Because when I said I was going to think about it anyway, he did not wish me luck. He did not say he trusted me. He said, "Do not come crying to me when it goes wrong." That was the love I was used to. Conditional. Supportive only when I complied. As these memories surfaced, I started to understand the Christmas Eve shove differently. It was not a sudden loss of temper. It was not an isolated incident. It was the moment when his usual tools stopped working. I had always complied before. I had always backed down. I had always absorbed his anger and adjusted my behavior. That night I did not. I asked a clear question. I named a number. I did not apologize for asking. And when my words failed to bring me back into line, he escalated. The shove was not just physical force. It was a last resort. A body reacting when authority is threatened. That realization made my stomach turn, because it meant the violence was not accidental. It was intentional in its purpose, even if he never admitted it to himself. I started paying attention to the language my family used when they talked about him. Dad did not mean it. Dad was stressed. Dad is old school. Dad loves you in his own way. Every phrase softened the impact of his actions while sharpening the expectation that I endure them. Mom was the keeper of that language. She wrapped his behavior in excuses the way some people wrap fragile items in newspapers. Quietly, carefully, repeatedly. When Dad yelled, Mom said he was tired. When Dad insulted Mom, said he was worried. When Dad pushed me to the floor, Mom said he did not mean it. And by saying that, she taught me something powerful and dangerous. That love meant minimizing harm to preserve peace. I could see it clearly now. Her silence was not neutral. It was a strategy, a way to survive by aligning with power instead of challenging it. And I had inherited that strategy without realizing it. For years I had thought my ability to smooth things over was a strength, a sign of maturity, a way to keep relationships intact. But now I saw the cost. Every time I smoothed things over, I erased myself a little more. The more I reflected, the clearer the truth became. My dad did not lose control on Christmas Eve. He lost control of me. And the moment he realized he could not intimidate or guilt me back into place, he used his body to reassert dominance. That was not love. That was abuse. Saying that word in my head felt heavy. Abuse. It carried weight and finality I had spent my life avoiding. But it fits. He had used physical force. He had used financial access. He had used emotional manipulation. And when challenged, he doubled down instead of taking responsibility. That is abuse. I also had to confront another truth, one that was harder to sit with. I participated in it, not by causing it, but by allowing it to continue, by mistaking control for care, by calling compliance respect, by believing that being a good daughter meant making myself smaller. That realization did not make me hate myself. It made me grieve. I grieved the years I spent trying to earn love that was only ever given, conditionally. I grieved the version of my dad I wished existed. I grieved the family dynamic I had hoped would change if I just tried harder. Late one evening, I sat on my couch with a notebook open in my lap and wrote a single sentence. Control dressed up as love is still control. I stared at it for a long time. The shove on Christmas Eve was not an outlier. It was the most honest moment of our relationship. The moment when the mask slipped completely. Once I named it, I could not unsee it. The missing money, the entitlement, the rage, the rewriting of events, the pressure from relatives, the demand that I sacrifice myself to keep the system running. It all pointed to the same truth. My dad did not see me as an independent adult with autonomy. He saw me as an extension of himself, a resource, a role. And the moment I stopped playing that role, he showed me exactly how far he was willing to go to force me back into it. As painful as that understanding was, it also gave me something I had never had before: clarity. Because once you call something by its real name, you stop negotiating with it. Violence is violence. Financial exploitation is financial exploitation. Control does not become love just because it comes from family. That night, as I closed my notebook and turned off the lights, I felt a strange steadiness settle in my chest. I was no longer confused about what had happened, and I was no longer confused about what I owed. I owed myself safety. I owed myself the truth. And I owed myself a future where love did not require surrender. That clarity changed the way I moved through the next few days. I stopped bracing for explosions. I stopped rehearsing conversations that would never happen. I focused on what was in front of me: my work, my healing, my paperwork. The quiet steps that do not look dramatic from the outside but shift everything underneath. It started with an email from the bank. The subject line was neutral, almost boring. Account review notification. I opened it without much expectation, expecting another automated message or a generic warning about unusual activity. Instead, it stated that several transactions linked to my savings account had been flagged for review due to patterns inconsistent with my historical activity. It asked me to confirm whether I recognized the transfers. I felt a slow, steady breath move through my chest. Don't panic, not excitement. Recognition. I replied simply, I do not recognize these transactions. Please advise next steps. An hour later, my phone rang. This time the number was blocked. I answered cautiously. Ms. Brooks, a woman said, her voice calm and professional. This is Detective Susan Hale with the Madison Police Department. I am calling in relation to a financial inquiry connected to your bank. The words landed softly, but they landed. I sat down on the edge of my couch. Yes, I said. How can I help? She explained that the bank had filed a report after identifying repeated transfers from my account that appeared unauthorized. As part of their process, They cross-referenced recent account activity with other reports. That included a medical visit connected to an injury report where I had documented an incident at a private residence. My stomach tightened, not from fear, but from the strange feeling of two separate paths finally intersecting. She was careful with her language. "This is not an accusation," she said. "At this stage, it is an inquiry. I would like to ask you a few questions and verify some information." I agreed to meet her the following morning at the precinct. That night I slept better than I had in weeks, not because everything was resolved, because I was no longer carrying it alone. The station was quiet when I arrived, the kind of quiet that feels procedural rather than ominous. Fluorescent lights, neutral walls, the faint smell of coffee and paper. Detective Hale met me in the lobby. She was in her late 40s, maybe early 50s, with tired eyes and an expression that suggested she had seen enough human behavior to stop being surprised by it. She led me into a small interview room and offered me water. I declined, then accepted when my throat felt dry. She started by asking me to confirm basic details: my name, my age, my address. Then she asked about the savings account. "Can you tell me when you first noticed the transfers?" she asked. I told her, calmly, factually. I explained how I had trusted my dad to help manage my savings. I explained the arrangement in broad terms without embellishment. I explained the moment I noticed the discrepancies. She nodded and took notes. "Did you authorize him to withdraw funds for his personal use?" she asked. "No," I said. "Did you ever give written permission for those transfers?" "No." "Did you confront him?" "Yes." "And what happened when you did?" I paused for half a second, not because I did not know what to say, but because I was choosing how to say it. I did not dramatize. I did not minimize it. I stated it plainly. He pushed me to the floor. Detective Hale looked up at me then. Her expression did not change, but her attention sharpened. "You sought medical care afterward?" "Yes." "Do you have documentation?" "Yes." I slid a copy of the urgent care visit summary across the table. She read it carefully. Bruising, soft tissue injury, reported fall, date, time. "Did you report the assault at the time?" she asked. "No." She did not ask why right away. She let the silence sit. Then she asked gently, "Would you like to explain why?" I took a breath. I was injured. I was dizzy. My mom and brother were present and did not intervene. I did not feel safe escalating the situation at that moment. It was Christmas Eve. I needed to leave. She nodded. "That is understandable." I felt something loosen in my chest. Not because she validated me, because she did not question my judgment. We moved through the rest of the questions. Dates, amounts, access. I answered everything honestly. I did not add commentary. I did not speculate about motives. I did not assign labels. I just told the truth. At the end, she slid a document toward me. "This is a statement confirming that the transfers were not authorized by you," she said. "Signing it does not mean charges are being filed today. It means you are formally stating your position." I read it carefully, then signed my name. When I handed it back, my hand was steady. Detective Hale closed the folder. "I want to be clear about something," she said. "This process moves at its own pace. It is based on documentation and verification. It is not about revenge or punishment. It is about accuracy." I nodded. "I understand." She stood and walked me back to the lobby. Before I left, she said something that stayed with me. "People often think accountability comes with confrontation," she said. "In reality, it usually comes through paperwork." Outside, the air was cold and bright. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, breathing it in. I did not feel triumphant. I felt grounded. Over the next week, small things began to shift. The bank froze the remaining access my dad had to my savings account. I received confirmation emails written in language so neutral it felt almost soothing. Access removed. Review ongoing. Mark Holloway emailed me to confirm that the lender had formally notified Dad of the need to refinance or resolve the delinquency independently. There was no mention of me as a fallback. My phone stayed mostly quiet. Fewer calls, fewer messages. The pressure eased, not because my family understood, but because the system no longer needed me to function. Mom sent one short text. "Please stop this before it goes too far." I did not reply. Paul sent another message. "This is getting serious. Dad is scared." That sentence stayed with me for a long time. Not because it made me feel guilty, because it revealed everything. Dad was not remorseful. He was scared. Scared of consequences. Scared of exposure. Scared of losing control. And for the first time, that fear was not mine to manage. One evening, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, reviewing the trail I had created. Bank statements, emails, notes, the signed statement, the urgent care visit. All of it fit together like a quiet machine doing exactly what it was designed to do. No yelling, no dramatic confrontation, no public spectacle, just process. I thought about how often people say karma will get them, as if it arrives like thunder, loud and obvious. But what I was watching unfold was quieter than that. Karma did not raise its voice. It did not slam doors or shove bodies. It moved through forms and flags and phone calls that started with Ms. Brooks and ended with confirmation numbers. It did not need my anger to fuel it. It only needed truth. That night, I turned off my phone early and sat on my couch with a blanket over my legs. My hips still ache sometimes, a reminder that healing is not linear. But the ache no longer felt like a wound. It felt like information. I had done what I needed to do. Not to hurt anyone, not to prove a point. To protect myself. And as I stared out the window at the quiet street below, I understood something that settled deep into my bones. Justice does not always look like victory. Sometimes, it looks like systems working as intended once you step out of the way. And for the first time since Christmas Eve, I felt at peace with letting that happen. And with that peace came restraint. There were so many things I did not do. I did not post a single word online, not a vague quote, not a carefully cropped photo, not a late-night status meant to invite sympathy or spark outrage. I did not tell my side of the story to anyone who did not need to know. I did not call relatives to correct the version they were spreading. I did not defend myself in group chats or reply to passive-aggressive comments that floated my way like bait. I did not chase validation. That choice surprised even me. A younger version of myself would have wanted witnesses. Proof that I was not crazy. Proof that what happened mattered. But somewhere between the urgent care room and the police station and the quiet evenings alone in my apartment, something in me had shifted. I no longer needed a jury. I had spent my whole life explaining myself, explaining why I needed space, explaining why I worked so much, explaining why I saved instead of spent, explaining why I felt uncomfortable with certain jokes or comments or expectations, explaining why I was tired. This time I chose not to. I focused on my work. I showed up to meetings. I met deadlines. I let my days have structure. In the evenings, I cooked simple meals and ate them slowly. I took walks even when the air was cold enough to sting. I let my body recover without rushing it. The quiet was not empty. It was intentional. The first time my phone rang with my dad's name again, it happened late in the afternoon on a Tuesday. I was standing in my kitchen rinsing a coffee mug when the vibration echoed against the counter. I stared at the screen. My heart rate did not spike. My hands did not shake. I noticed that before anything else. I let it ring. It went to voicemail. A minute later, it rang again. This time I answered. "Hello," I said. There was a pause on the other end, just long enough for me to hear his breathing. "Athena," he said. His voice sounded different. Not loud, not commanding. Thinner, like he was speaking through uncertainty instead of certainty. I waited. "What is going on?" he asked. His words came out clipped. "The bank froze things. They are asking questions. This has gotten out of hand." I leaned against the counter and closed my eyes. Not because I was overwhelmed, but because I wanted to listen carefully. I did not interrupt him. I let him keep talking. He said the bank was treating him like a criminal. He said the mortgage officer would not return his calls directly anymore. He said paperwork kept arriving that he did not understand. He said this was blowing up over nothing. At no point did he ask how I was feeling. At no point did he mention Christmas Eve. At no point did he say the word sorry. "You need to fix this," he said finally. "You need to tell them there was a misunderstanding." I took a slow breath. "Dad," I said, my voice calm, "I am not fixing anything." There was silence. "What do you mean you are not fixing it?" he snapped. "You are making me look bad." I felt something settle into place inside me. "I am not responsible for how this looks," I said. I told the truth. That is all. His voice rose. This is a family business. You did not have to involve outsiders. I did not involve anyone, I said. The bank did their job. The police did their job. I did mine. He scoffed. You always think you are right. I did not respond to that. After a moment, his tone shifted again. It lost its edge. It became pleading in a way that made my stomach turn. You know I never meant to hurt you, he said. You know that. I opened my eyes and looked around my kitchen. The clean counters, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the life I had built without his approval. Dad, I said, this conversation is not helpful. What do you want? He asked. His voice cracked just slightly. What do you want me to do? I considered that question carefully. I want to communicate in writing only, I said, and I will not discuss money with you again. That is ridiculous, he said immediately. That is my boundary, I replied. Another pause. He exhaled sharply. You are being dramatic. The word hung there. I felt no reaction to it, no sting, no urge to defend myself. I am ending this call now, I said. You cannot just hang up on me, he said. I can, I said. And I did. I set the phone down on the counter and stood there for a moment, letting the quiet return. It did not feel like victory. It felt like self-respect. That evening, Mom sent a message. Your dad is under a lot of stress. He did not sleep last night. Please do not make this harder. I read it once, then again. I typed a response, deleted it, typed another, deleted that too. Finally, I wrote one sentence. I am not available for conversations about money or blame. I did not add anything else. Paul did not contact me that week, or the next. I suspected he was caught between loyalty and fear, the same way he always had been. I did not chase him either. Weeks passed. The investigation continued quietly in the background. I received updates in neutral language, requests for clarification, confirmations of receipt. Nothing dramatic, nothing urgent. Life filled in the spaces where chaos used to live. One evening I sat on my couch with a book open in my lap, though I was not really reading. My phone buzzed with a text notification. It was from my dad. This time it was a message, not a call. I need to understand what you are trying to do here. I stared at the words. Then I locked my phone and set it face down on the table. Understanding was no longer my responsibility to provide. I had spent too many years trying to make my boundaries palatable, softened, reasonable, easy to accept. This time they simply existed. I thought about all the things I had not done, all the reactions I had resisted, all the explanations I had withheld, not because I was afraid, but because I was done negotiating my worth. The truth was already in motion. It did not need my commentary. And as I turned off the lamp and let the room go dark, I knew something important. I had not lost my family. I had lost my role. And once I understood that everything else became possible, the final steps were not dramatic. They did not happen in one explosive moment. They happened quietly across desks and screens and forms, the way real endings usually do. The first thing I did was open a new bank account, a completely separate one at a different institution. New login, new passwords, no shared access, no familiar names attached to it but mine. I sat in a small office with a banker who spoke gently and did not ask unnecessary questions. She explained options. I listened. I chose it. When she slid the papers across the desk, I signed them with a hand that felt steady and sure. I transferred what remained of my savings into that new account. Not everything was recoverable, at least not yet, but enough. Enough to breathe, enough to rebuild. Enough to know I was no longer financially tethered to someone who had proven he did not respect me. After that, I froze my credit. It was a simple process, one I had never thought I would need. A few clicks, a confirmation email, another small lock placed exactly where it belonged. I felt a strange sense of relief as I did it, like I was finally closing windows I had never realized were open. The mortgage was next. Mark Holloway called me on a Wednesday morning. His voice was professional calm, and very different from the strained tone I had heard weeks earlier. I wanted to let you know that your dad completed the refinance process, he said. The new loan is solely in his name. Your obligation as a co-signer has been formally released. He emailed me the documentation while we were still on the phone. I opened it and read every line. My name appeared once, followed by the word released. That word landed heavier than I expected. It felt like a door finally opening. "So that means I am clear?" I asked. "Yes, Athena," he said. "You are no longer legally or financially tied to that property." I thanked him and ended the call. I sat there for a moment, staring at the screen. Then I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair. That chapter of my life was finished. Not forgiven, not forgotten. Finished. The last piece was the hardest, not because it involved paperwork, but because it involved language. I knew I needed to say something to my family. Not to explain, not to justify, to define. I did not gather them together. I did not ask for a meeting. I did not invite debate. I sent one message, the same message to each of them. I am no longer involved in family finances. I will not loan money, manage money, or discuss money. I will not meet alone with anyone who minimizes or rewrites what happened. If we speak, it will be respectful and grounded in reality. If that is not possible, I will take space. I read it 3 times before sending it, not to soften it, to make sure it was clear. Mom replied first. "This feels very harsh." I did not respond. Paul replied later that night. "I wish things did not have to be this way." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed back. "This is the way they are." Dad did not reply at all. That silence felt different from the others. It was not strategic. It was not performative. It was the silence of someone who no longer had leverage. And that told me everything I needed to know. The days that followed were quiet. Not empty, but calm. I settled into routines that belonged entirely to me. I woke up early and drank coffee slowly. I went to work and did my job well. I paid my own bills. I planned my own future. One afternoon, I walked out of the bank after finalizing the last account change. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the parking lot. I paused for a moment before getting into my car. For years, I had measured my worth by how useful I was to my family, how reliable, how accommodating, how willing to sacrifice. Standing there, keys in my hand, I realized something quietly profound. I was no longer the daughter they needed me to be. I was the woman I had become. That woman did not beg for safety. She created it. She did not argue with denial. She chose distance. She did not confuse love with control. She knew the difference now. People sometimes ask me if I forgive my dad. The truth is, forgiveness is not the point. Clarity is. I do not wake up angry. I do not replay arguments in my head. I do not fantasize about confrontation. I live my life. Some relationships did not survive that shift. Others changed shape. A few may return someday on different terms. But I no longer build my sense of self around that uncertainty. What I learned through all of this is simple and hard and freeing all at once. Boundaries are not punishments. They are information. They tell people what behavior is required to stay close to you. And when someone reacts with anger or withdrawal, that reaction is also information. I did not destroy my family. I stopped protecting a version of it that only worked when I stayed small. If you are listening to this and something in your chest feels tight, I want you to hear this part clearly. You are not dramatic for wanting clarity. You are not selfish for wanting safety. You are not wrong for refusing to be mistreated in the name of family. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have ever been told you were too much or not enough for your own family, remember this. Silence can be power and truth can be the loudest revenge. Tell me in the comments what integrity means to you and where you are listening from.